Module 2, Defining Goals for Data Identification.
At their last board meeting, the trustees at Bluebonnet Community College used the data-informed governance framework to establish an objective to increase the number of students who complete credentials of value in healthcare by 20% within 3 years. It's been a month, and the board reconvenes, carrying the momentum from their last meeting. Establishing a clear and strategic objective was a great start, but it was only the beginning. Trustee Sarah Franklin voices what many of her colleagues are thinking. We've set our objective, but now what? How do we track progress or decide on what actions to take? I know we need to look at completion numbers for all our healthcare programs, but beyond that, I'm just not sure. This honest reflection captures a common challenge. Knowing you need data is different from knowing what data you need. But how do you identify what data you need?
Today, you'll learn how to turn broad concerns into strategic questions that drive data collection and data-informed governance decisions. When you're done with this module, you will be able to identify the types of questions most appropriate to ask, understand where strategic questions originate from, formulate questions that can be answered with data analysis, and recognize different types of data to understand when and how they should be used. In Module 1, you learned about the importance of starting with clear objectives. In this step of the DIG framework, you'll learn how to take those objectives and develop strategic questions. Strategic questions guide data collection and ensure what is gathered and presented will be what you need to make data-informed decisions. When developing strategic questions, you should always start with your strategic objectives and ask what you need to know to assess the current situation, ensure progress, and make informed decisions. Developing strategic data questions is collaborative work between you, your fellow trustees, and your CEO. Your role is to identify what you need to know to make governance decisions. Your CEO's role is to identify what data are available and what questions can be answered given the college's resources. As a trustee, it is your responsibility to ask big-picture questions, not get involved in day-to-day operations. Instead of asking how many students are enrolled in each section of college algebra, ask, are the math pathway reforms implemented last year improving student success in gateway courses? Now that we've covered the what and how of asking strategic data questions, let's discuss the types of data that can be used to answer them. Not all data are the same. Understanding the type of data you are working with and which are most appropriate to use and when will help you ask better questions and interpret results more effectively. Now let's look at the difference between quantitative and qualitative data, then explore how time impacts data and data use. Quantitative data are numerical and measurable. These data provide insight into how many, how much, or how often something occurs, and allow you to track trends and make comparisons. Enrollment, persistence, and completion rates are examples of quantitative data. Qualitative data are descriptive and non-numerical. They provide additional context and deeper understanding of decisions, actions, and outcomes. Qualitative data help answer the why and how questions that numbers alone cannot address. Open text responses from surveys, focus group discussions, interview recordings, and observational videos are examples of qualitative data. Both quantitative and qualitative data are essential for data-informed governance. Quantitative data might show a drop in completion rates, while qualitative data from focus groups could reveal that required courses are only available during hours inaccessible to working students. Together, these insights help boards consider how institutional policies impact student success. Time also impacts data, and understanding when and how to use different time-based data is an important part of data-informed governance. Trend data show patterns over time, helping identify whether conditions are improving or declining. Retention rates over a 5-year period are an example of trend data. Snapshot data, on the other hand, provide a picture at a specific moment. Snapshot data are useful for understanding current conditions. The current semester's retention rate is an example of snapshot data. Another important distinction is between data that predict future outcomes versus data that show past results. We call these leading and lagging indicators. Leading and lagging indicators have been widely researched in higher education, and their use can transform how you leverage data for governance. Leading indicators predict future outcomes and as a result allow for proactive interventions. Research has identified several key leading indicators for community college student success, such as first-year credit accumulation and gateway course completion in math and English. Lagging indicators show results after they've occurred, like graduation and transfer rates. Unlike leading indicators, lagging indicators reflect outcomes for students who have already moved on from the college, making data less actionable for immediate intervention, but still provide insights to improve future policy revisions. This distinction is critical given that state appropriations for Texas community colleges focus on student outcomes. Completion metrics are lagging indicators. To improve those long-term outcomes, your team will need to pay attention to leading indicators, such as the number of credits that students accumulate in their first year.
Let's return to Bluebonnet Community College, where the trustees are working on turning their objective into actionable questions. Following Trustee Franklin's comments about not being sure what data would be most helpful, the trustees started suggesting all the data points they might need. The list grew quickly: enrollment numbers by course, pass rates by instructor, equipment costs per program, student attendance patterns, clinical site availability, and more. Board Chair Lisa Chen paused the discussion. "I appreciate everyone's enthusiasm," she said, "but I think we're getting into operational details." Remembering the principles of the DIG framework, Chairperson Chen had an idea. "Let's refocus our conversation," she said. "Rather than list all the data we may possibly need, let's instead think about what questions we need to answer so that we can make informed decisions in support of our objective." With this shift in perspective, the board started a new discussion, now focused on developing strategic questions. In the end, they came up with 3 data questions. What are the current completion rates by healthcare program and student demographics for the last 3 years? What are students' first-year credit accumulation rates by healthcare program and student demographics for the last 3 years? Which healthcare programs show the greatest disparities in first-year credit accumulations and completion rates, and what factors contribute to these gaps? By the end of the meeting, the board was satisfied with where they landed, and the CEO, Dr. Emilio Martinez, was confident that the college's institutional research team could provide analyses to answer these questions and support the board in making informed policy and resource decisions.
Strategic data questions bridge the gap between your objectives and actionable insights. By focusing on governance-level concerns and maintaining alignment with your strategic goals, these questions ensure that the data analyses presented to the board are relevant and support effective decision-making. Remember, your role is to identify what you need to know to make policy and resource decisions. Your CEO and institutional research team will then determine how best to gather and present that information. In the next module, we'll explore how to work with your CEO and institutional research team to ensure the right data are collected and analyzed to answer your strategic questions. For now, use the discussion guide to reflect on your board's current objectives and consider what questions you need data to help answer. Be sure to review the additional resources provided as well.